So, empowering parents how to advocate effectively. Of course, we've gone over our workshop guidelines, but just to take another minute for those who are just entering, please place your computer on mute during this workshop. Please sign in by placing your name and your school and your that your child attends in the chat box. If you have any questions, please place those in the chat box as well. Tonight, we are going to try to have some open dialogue. This is going to be a first for us. So work with us as we may switch from being able to see my screen to being able to see you all. Our objectives for tonight, we're going to discuss what is advocacy, why does it matter, resources that are within Cumberland County Schools, close out, and do our question and answer session. Our topics that you're really here to discuss tonight, what is advocacy? Why does it matter to my child's education? And what resources do Cumberland County Schools provide to help a parent that is trying to advocate for their student? Core assumptions. What we firmly believe is that all children have dignity, potential, and talents, as well as the rights and education that allows them to develop those abilities fully and contribute to society. We do know that all families want what is best for their children and can be valuable resources to the school community. So we need you as advocates for your child and other children. Partnership entails clarifying and sharing roles and responsibilities, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. What is the school's role? What is your role as the parent? And how do we work together in partnership? So we are going to take this opportunity to do a little think, pair, share. Typically, we will be all in a room together and we'd be looking in each other's eyes and trying to stay cool and all that good stuff. But in virtual world, we're going to try something a little different. So we're going to do a think, pair, share, true, false. I am going to stop sharing my screen at this moment so that I will be able to see everyone. And the way that this think, pair, share is going to work is I'm going to ask a question. And if you think it is true, you're going to give me a thumbs up. If you think it's false, you're going to give me a thumbs down. Okay? Everybody got it. Thumbs up if you think it's true. Thumbs down if you think it's false. So, teachers are the most important influence on a child's education. Thumbs up if you think it's true. Thumbs down if you think it's false. Okay, I see some mix in the room. Okay. To be involved, parents have to understand everything their children are learning in school. Thumbs up if you think that you have to understand everything. Thumbs down if not, if you think that's false. Thumbs up, thumbs down, man, not really sure. All of the thumbs. Okay. Our third one is parents must wait for the school to invite them to get involved. If you think that's true, thumbs up. Think that's false, thumbs down. Okay, I see some thumbs down for that one. And you can also post in the chat. That's good too. Education does not take place at home. Thumbs up if you think that's true. Thumbs down if you think that's false. Especially when we're in COVID world. We do all our education at home, right? So let's go over the answers. Thank you all for participating. I saw the thumbs up, mixed thumbs, all kinds of thumbs going on the screen. So that was cool. So the first question was, teachers are the most important influence on a child's education. The answer to that is false. You as a parent play a vital role from birth until we get them in pre-K or fifth or kindergarten in educating your child. The second question, to be involved, parents have to understand everything their child is learning in school. That is false. You are not the teacher per se. You don't have to understand algebra. You don't have to understand fractions. You don't have to understand all the standard course of study. You don't have to understand it all. So we don't expect you to. So that is false. You don't have to understand everything to be involved in your child's education. The third question was, parents must wait for the school to invite them in to get involved. And that is false. In this partnership, you as the parent get to volunteer. You can call and schedule a meeting. You can say, I just want to meet you because I don't know who's spending all day with my child. You have that right as a parent, and take advantage of that as an advocate for your child. And our last question, education does not take place at home. That, of course, is a big thumbs down. That is false. Education, regardless of COVID-19, does take place at home. So let's get back to our screen. So we went through those answers. Thank you for participating. All of those were false. What is your role as a parent? You play such a vital piece in what happens in our educating your child. You are a key factor in the success of your child's educational experience. We are partners. This is a partnership. A partnership is a relationship between two people or two entities. It's a relationship between the family at home and the school, in which there has an equal status and certain independence, but also an obligation to each other. We are obligated to work with you, and you as the family who want what's best for your children are obligated to work with your child's school. Equal in value and status, partnership requires sharing knowledge for the good of the children. You know your children better than anyone. So we depend on you to give us that information so that we can make sure that we provide whatever is needed to best benefit your child. Independence in regard to each partner's ability to bring viewpoints and contributions for cooperative decision making. Algebra really may not be your thing. It's definitely not my thing. So in the partnership, I need the algebra teacher to help my child or help my family member because I am going to really have a hard day if I have to do it. So I'm going to bring the viewpoint of knowing my child may struggle with math, but the teacher can bring their experience and expertise and training and help my child to be able to complete their work and have a good educational experience. There's also the obligation or responsibility to work together for the child's education. We are obligated to work together to make sure we provide the best opportunity for all of our children. Teamwork. You are always a vital piece of the team, regardless of whether we are doing remote learning or we're back in face-to-face. We are a team, and the concept of working together cooperatively is so important to make sure that our team wins. Coming together, sharing together, working together is what we need to make sure that we succeed together. I am now going to turn it over to Mr. Whitley, and he will lead the rest of our presentation.
Thankful that you're here. So once again, I am Lindsay Whitley, and I have the awesome opportunity to lead communications and community engagement, and family engagement falls under that umbrella. And family engagement is one of my passions. And the reason being is that when families are involved in the educational process, amazing things happen. So tonight is a very important topic. We've had several important topics, but tonight's topic is extremely important because we're really talking about something that's going to help our kids and children succeed, which is parent and family engagement. And when that happens, amazing things happen when parents are involved in the educational process. So at this time, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about some of the challenges. So we've talked tonight a little bit about the importance of advocacy, why parents should advocate. And we're going to go into more detail about advocating for your child. But when we think about partnering or being engaged, we often say be engaged in your child's education. We understand that there may be some barriers. So tonight, I want to pose a question to you. What are some of the challenges that parents and or guardians face when trying to partner with school officials? So that could be your child's teacher, principal, teacher assistant. So we're going to give you an opportunity. Or can you stop sharing the screen? So now we're going to give you an opportunity to unmute yourselves if you would like in the bottom left-hand corner. If you want to turn on your cameras, and you can wave. You don't have to turn on your cameras. But we want to just talk about what are some of the barriers, if you will, to sometimes that may hinder some families from, having that partnership with the school. So the floor is open to you now. You may put it in the chat, but you may also unmute yourselves. If you go to the left-hand portion of the screen, there is an unmute button that you may click there. Okay. I see in the chat, fear from past experiences when they were in school. So sometimes as parents and guardians, we may have had some challenges in the past. And maybe, there was something that didn't go quite right for us at school. And so we may not feel comfortable. I see another comment in the chat, communication barriers and past negative experiences. So once again, things that have happened in the past. And sometimes, even though that could have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, that may hinder us in terms of being engaged in the educational process. All right. Any other thoughts that you would like to share? Why? What are some of the barriers? What are some of the challenges that parents face when they try to partner? Transportation, okay, issues. All right. So, maybe my child is at a school that I can't just walk to. So there may be a challenge getting to the PTA meeting. Great. Not greeted friendly. Don't feel welcome. So, got off work at 6 o'clock, almost got a speeding ticket and get there. And maybe I don't feel like I'm welcome there. Experiencing daily stressors. The saying, the struggle is real. Now, more than ever before, for many of us, the struggle is real. We have additional stressors. We're trying to make ends meet at times. We're trying to work and provide for the family. And sometimes the stress becomes too much. Language barriers, new system updates, information loss, not being listened to, not taken seriously about academic concerns. So the list goes on. This is a great list of things that sometimes these are challenges and barriers that are real that parents may face when trying to partner with school officials. So I think I see another one, not responsive. So everybody is busy. And so maybe there's a challenge of hearing back. So I reached out and it's been 2 or 3 days, and I didn't hear back. So thank you for that. So we'll put the PowerPoint back up on the screen. So we want to start off by recognizing and acknowledging that sometimes there are some challenges that parents may face when trying to partner with school officials. But something that I want to really underscore this presentation, we've said it and I will continue to say it, relationships are key. If you were to ask me, what is one of the most important relationships in terms of your child's success? Many of you probably would say, well, I need to make sure I get some scholarship money. Or others would say, well, I think it's important for the child to me to have a good relationship with the child's principal. Or, many answers probably would come. But I would suggest to you, one of the most important relationships is the relationship between the parent and the child's teacher. I can't stress that tonight. When parents and teachers work together on behalf of the child is the ultimate beneficiary, and the child benefits greatly. So think about it. Ms. George talked about how many hours, children spend at school or in their teacher's classroom, even virtually. And so when you think about that, and then the other part of the time, the parent, of course, is with the child. So when the teacher and the parent can compare notes, so to speak, stay in touch and build those strong relationships, that will only benefit the child. Okay, next slide, please. So when we think of advocacy, you could go to Webster. We really think of someone who is arguing for a cause. But in the case of advocating for your child, or when we say advocacy, basically that's a fancy way of saying someone who's going to stand up, who's going to ask very good questions, who's so determined to make sure that their child succeeds that they will email the teacher, drop by the school to ask a question. If something doesn't sound quite right, they are going to stand up because they understand the importance of their child's education. So when we say advocacy tonight, that is what we're talking about. It can take on many forms, all right? So when we think about it, advocacy, talking to your child about problems at school. So we're so busy, all of us, everyone is busy. And so it's so important to make sure we keep the lines of communication open with each and every one of our children. Now let me ask you this, you can put it in the chat. If you ask your child, I guarantee you it's a universal answer. What does your child typically say if you ask them a question? Okay, what did you do at school today? What's a common answer that some children, maybe it's just my kids. Okay, I see it in the chat. Nothing. I don't know. I can't remember. It was boring. Nothing. So the number one answer is nothing. And that's fine. That's typical of children, and that's okay. It could have been the best lesson ever, but that's going to be the answer that many children will give, and that's okay. So sometimes we have to ask deeper questions. Well, tell me about your school day. Or we may say, tell me about, if they're in a science class, tell me about your science class today. Tell me about some of the things the teacher taught about. What are your projects right now that you're working on? Thinking of some questions to, once again, learn from the child about how things are going, but also opening up the door to discover if something isn't going well, to learn if they have questions or concerns about another student at the school or possibly a teacher. Next, it's important to meet with teachers. And I think this is important, as we all know, this isn't about when things are going wrong. This is about, even when things are going well, building that relationship with the child's teacher. As Ms. George shared, when she shared some of those questions, you don't have to wait to be invited. As a parent, as a guardian, it's your right to say, hey, I just want to learn and see how Billy is doing, or I just want to see how little Johnny is doing. I just want to see how my son or daughter is doing in class. That's totally appropriate and acceptable for you to reach out and schedule, an appointment and time to be able to talk through those things. Asking questions. It's always appropriate to ask questions. If you don't know, ask the question. Sometimes, kids will come home and say things and maybe something doesn't sound quite right. It's totally appropriate for you to ask questions. Also, learning about the school's different departments and resources. We're very fortunate in Cumberland County to have many support services through student services, through academic services, through AIG, through EC. There are so many resources. And so many of them are on our website, many of them, you know, in the parent link message that maybe goes out each week on the website, social media. There are many places. So when we think of advocating, these are really just some simple ways and some simple things that you can do as a parent or guardian to advocate. All right, we'll go to the next slide, please. So a few tips. In education, we have a lot of acronyms. We have a lot of procedures and rules. Why? Because we totally want to keep our children safe. Those things are also in place to have a sense of equity so that we can make sure if for example, a child does something wrong, we want to make sure we clearly understand what the rules are, what the regulations are, and maybe what the discipline may be. And it's important that things are done in a fair manner. So it's important that you learn as a parent and know about the rules, the regulations, the jargon. You know, there's something that goes out every year. It's called the Student Code of Conduct. And, you know, we acknowledge it many times and we say that we've received it, but it's important to keep, because when you think about the Student Code of Conduct, it really governs any type of discipline. What happens if something's done wrong? It talks about various rights and responsibilities. And so it's important. That's a very important document. When we look, if you go to the Cumberland County Schools website, if you need an updated copy, that's on the website. Also, there is what is called a board policy. So the school board, the Cumberland County Board of Education, they have policies and procedures in place that govern everything from, you know, inclement weather to, you know, grading and graduation and student discipline. And so once again, that information is on the website. You can call your child's school or anybody and they can point you in the right direction. But in order to be a great advocate, knowledge is power. And so being able to know that information, if something doesn't sound right, or if you're hearing different things, you're able to go and find that information for yourself. So it's important to know. There could come a time when maybe something does not go too well at school. And you may not feel as if maybe the discipline that is handed down is the appropriate disciplinary measure. You as a parent, you can look in the Student Code of Conduct. You can also look at the many resources, and you're able to follow up and ask questions and to learn more about things. So once again, it's very important to know where to find that information and to know the rules, the regulations, and all of those things. And if you have a question about one, feel free to ask, because you're a partner in this, and that's very important. The other thing I would say or share is put everything in writing and stay organized. So I'll just tell you, I have 2 sons in Cumberland County Schools, and I'll just share, you know, they've had great experiences. And I'm so thankful for their schools and their teachers and administrators. But something I would say that's just very important, if you are following up on something or if you have a question, it is totally appropriate, you know, to send an email, you know. And so we have a Chandler Whitley binder. We also have a Carter Whitley binder. So I have 2 sons, Chandler and Carter. So we have 2 binders for them. And so when we are writing, and even if it's just a good, happy email, hey, how's Chandler doing in class? Or how are things going? It's very important from my perspective to keep a handle on it. As we look at report cards, when they come out, you know, or we look at progress reports, we've had sessions on Power School. We're constantly, you know, looking at their grades. We're looking at, you know, things as they come out, and then we put them in the binder, you know. So if there's a note that comes from the teacher, we put that in the binder. If there's a question that I have and we follow up with the child teacher, guess what? we put that in writing. And so why is it important to put things in writing? We have phenomenal teachers and staff. We have phenomenal principals, but sometimes you may have a disagreement. That's just reality. As a parent, you may see something different from your child's teacher. And so when we think about following the chain of command, which is the third bullet, that goes right along with bullet number 2. We always want to solve any situation at the lowest level possible. Now, out the gate, I'll say you have every right as a parent to reach out to the superintendent, to the school board, to anybody that you would like to. That information is published online, and that's for you to use however you need to. But I'll say this, if we're talking about building strong relationships, if we're talking about having a positive relationship with the child's teacher, it's very important that we follow the chain of command. And so that basically means if something's not going right with my child's teacher, maybe who should I reach out to first? I'm just going to ask you. This is just a pop quiz. I'm going to ask you, put it in the chat. If my son or daughter comes home, and your son or daughter comes home and they have an issue and they say something went on at school, what would you think would be the first thing that you should do if you want to learn more about that situation? So I'm going to give you a minute if you would like to add that in the chat. I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, I see one response. Any other responses? Okay, so you've talked, you've heard from your child, you've heard something go right. So I see several people say contact the teacher, then principal or assistant principal. So you get it. When we talk about chain of command, it's extremely important that we built the rapport with our child's teacher, that we can say, hey, Chandler came home today and he shared, such and so, and I just want to find out more about this. I didn't really understand this. And so that gives you an opportunity to build an understanding, share your concerns, and hopefully get things back on the right track. Now, sometimes it won't stop there. There are times when after you've talked with the teacher, maybe the situation is not resolved. So that goes back to point number 2 or bullet number 2. It's very important to keep things in writing, keep a log. If you followed up with the child's teacher a couple of times, maybe that's something you put in writing. You follow up an email, you have that handy. And so then the next step would be to maybe approach the administration. So maybe you're talking to or reaching out to the assistant principal, reaching out to the principal of the school. Then that's your opportunity to say, hey, here's the situation that is going on. And I've already, I've talked to the teacher a couple of times and the situation has not gotten any better. And I am now coming to you, as the principal or the school administrator to see how can we, rectify the situation. So you get the idea. Hopefully it will get resolved at that level. But if not, guess what? Then you may decide to reach out to central services, and then you're able to, you may call school support, you may call the superintendent's office, and it goes from there. So you get the point. We want to stay organized, know the responsibilities, the rules, the jargon, the regulation, and we want to follow the chain of command. All right. So when we reach out, this is important. This is something that I've shared internally, even when I've had the opportunity to present the staff, and I always like to share it with families. When you encounter issues, always remember your attitude is communicated in 3 ways. It's not so much the words that you say, but also it can be your tone of voice, and it can also be in non-verbal ways. And I just always like to encourage teachers as well as parents to understand that we're in this together. We are truly partners. And so we just have to be mindful, because most of us, we are good and we're doing okay, and I'm gonna get a little off right now until you mess with our children. When you mess with our children, something happens. You know, there's just something that changes. And we get that. You mess with my kids. If something goes wrong, I'm a parent. I love my kids. That might upset me. So when we're thinking about reaching out about issues, sometimes we may have to take a few minutes to cool down and calm down a little bit so that we can make sure when we're communicating in a professional and kind way, even about things that are not so positive, but we're remembering our words, our tone of voice, and even our nonverbal cues. All right. More tips. Know your child's needs, what you're asking for. Find support groups within your community. We have PTA, PTSAs. There are various groups, even with like to support students who receive EC services. There are a variety of community-oriented groups. So it's very important to find those support groups of similar parents that you can talk to and share resources with. Trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't seem right, you know your child better than anyone. And it's very important that you act on your instincts, follow up, and communicate. A few more tips as we prepare to close. Once again, just some kind of closing reminders. Get to know your child's teachers. Ask to meet with them. Ask questions. I always like to come up with some questions to ask. You know, I just think that just helps. So when you're going to a parent-teacher conference, you know, teachers may have questions for you, but I always advise, always have some questions that you take to the parent-teacher conference. How is Johnny doing in this particular subject? You know, how is Chandler doing? What are some things he's doing well? Are there some things that maybe he can improve upon? You know, asking some of those questions, that's very, very helpful. Join PTA, attend open houses, get involved with school events as you're able to. We realize parents have busy schedules, but get involved as much as you are able to. Once again, just to emphasize, keep good records. Lots of important papers come home. Make sure you have those permission slips. Instead of tossing things aside, make sure you build that binder I was referring to, because that can become very, very helpful, especially when you have kids in high school. It's important at every level, but keeping the records can also be beneficial when it comes time for scholarships. Think about it. Your child's high school career is built pretty much their whole entire school career, but especially beginning in 9th grade. You know, so when you think about the awards they've received, their volunteer service, all of that, it's great if you can keep all that information together, because it will come in handy at a later time. All right, next slide, please. So in my closing, want to just share the CCS website with you. Great resource there. Want to encourage you to continue to attend Cumberland Family Academy workshops. There's a survey in the chat there, and we want you to fill it out, because you tell us what you like about this workshop, but you also can tell us what other resources, what other topics you would like to see addressed. Also want to just continue to encourage you to collaborate and use those community resources. And that's it. So at this time, Miss George and I, we will entertain any questions or that you may have.